well. I mean, the wonderful thing about wineries and winemaking and grape growing is that, well, first of all, you don't wear these kind of clothes.
Okay.
uh, you're in your jeans and a work shirt, and you're out there really looking at what the earth can provide. Because, first of all, like a garden, as anybody who's interested in gardening knows, um, certain types of soil and exposure to sun, some kinds of plants grow well in one type, some in another, and grapevines are that way. Um, the growing of grapes for wine is really, I would say, from having watched it all these years, one of the really most refined kinds of farming for the production of a food kind of produce. Um, what we're really doing is trying to grow a vine that, when it produces the crop, will have all of those clusters at the same level of ripeness, ready to be picked on the same day, which is very different than most kinds of produce where you're picking over time only the ones that are ripe today, tomorrow, next week. So it's a very, I will tell you that often when people come to Napa and they see what we do, they say, you're living in a whole nother world. Because it's very focused and people really get into this. It's a wonderful puzzle, but it's very different than a lot of other kinds of work. The thing I love most about it is that if you have the opportunity to, as I have, to be at a vineyard when it's first planted, okay, so essentially what you're doing is you're putting a stick in the ground.
Right.
It happens to be the right stick, okay? But basically you're putting a stick in the ground, and over many years, someone is training and caring for those vines, very much like as individual plants with individual needs, trying to make sure that they all one day will be in the same level of health and able to make this wonderful wine. And then you spend a couple of years, it's like a restaurant, except you only get a chance once a year to start with fresh ingredients. And then at some later time, it goes in the bottle. It's away, aging in the bottle for some period of time. So now all of these years have gone by. Then you get to go to a dinner like the one I did last night. You actually get to meet the people who put this into their bodies. It's a very intimate kind of relationship, and yet you've seen it all the way from this very almost primeval thing of putting a stick in the ground and caring for it to make a plant, and now you're actually meeting the people that are ingesting and enjoying it, which is very different than even most kinds of agriculture where, say, you grew oranges and they make orange juice, but you never meet the people that drink the orange juice. It's a very kind of connected sort of thing.
That's so eloquently said. That's really exciting. Now, one of the exhibits, one of the great things about Napa is they have this new museum called the Copia. What is the formal name? The Copia. If you go to Copia into Google, you'll find the website. But they have a lot of exhibits and a lot of lessons and sometimes celebrity chefs. But when I was there last June, they had ancient vessels meant for carrying wine. And they had this headless vessel shaped like a human, but the toes were for where the servant would pour the wine. Did you see that exhibit? It was great.
We have great stuff there. It's the American Center for Wine, Food, and the Arts.
Right.
It's been up and running for a couple of years now. It's really a destination. I mean, I think it's in the city of Napa.
Right.
So it brings a new energy to Napa and a lot of new restaurants as well and a lot of things to do there. Copia has incredible gardens. Display gardens that you can see just about anything that will grow in that part of the country. It also has, of course, a lot of things about wine, but wonderful exhibits that are food related. One of my favorites was a wall full of forks, each of which was, different, and some of them old and bent. It was really, I mean, nothing you would think of as being art, but as a wall and a display, it was really cool.
Yeah.
It's art.
And they also have a restaurant named after our own Julia Child, called Julia's Kitchen, and lots of really fun things to do there. Now, the wine auction takes place every year in June, and this year, I believe, is it starting June 4th?
It's the first weekend of June.
Right. It's the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I know the 6th is my birthday, so I almost spend all of my birthdays there celebrating very well. But one of the great things about the wine auction is that it goes to charity. Everything goes to charity. And they have what's called hospitality lunches, hospitality dinners, plus big events. Outside of the auction itself, there is a big dinner on Friday night and so forth. Now, your Turnbull sponsored the lunch this year.
Well, the vintners provide these opportunities for people to come for open houses, to come for lunches or dinners, in addition to the very wonderful events that are included within the wine
Right.
auction. The amazing dinner that they do for 2,000 and some
Right.
people, all served at one time, which is pretty remarkable. And a really great barrel auction where wineries provide barrels of wine that people can then bid on and come away with a wine potentially that doesn't exist in a standard commercial kind of form.
I've never mastered the art of being able to taste a barrel wine and see what it's going to be like. What should one look for in tasting a barrel wine?
Well, let me say this. It's in the process of making a wine, a really wonderful wine always starts out as this thing that is kind of awkward. And if you think of it in terms of that final wine that you want to find is this circle. The wine that you want to start out with somehow is larger than that circle. And the process of aging and maturing the wine is about kind of working off those rough edges until finally you've, like a gem. I mean, you finally have this thing that fits beautifully and is balanced in a way that smells good and feels good. The issue that we find is that in a lesser wine, a wine that perhaps you wouldn't want to bid on, is a wine that really seems smaller than that circle. And then what you're trying to do as a winemaker, because not all wines are created equal,
Right.
is to embellish that wine to sort of scale it up to meet that circle. But those wines ultimately down the road as library wines are never quite as satisfying.
Now, what is your, if you could create a wine dinner, no input from a chef, no input from anybody, what would you do?
Okay.
How would you start out?
Well, I have favorite things.
Okay.
Okay. So Sauvignon Blanc is a variety that I think is really wonderful for people today. I mean, everybody works too hard. You get home, you need a wine that's not too heavy, kind of light and refreshing, makes you feel like it's time to get dinner together and get on with the rest of your day or the rest of your evening. So I love Sauvignon Blanc, and Sauvignon Blanc is great with seafood. You know, whether it's oysters or whether it's a crab cake or whether and it does well also with spicier foods. So you want to do Thai, you want to do Oriental cuisine. It works well with all of those. So my perfect menu would have to start there.
Okay.
I love wines that are made from the variety Sangiovese because I think it's a very sensual kind of a variety. Aromatically, it can have almost a rose petal kind of aroma, and by its nature of being a Mediterranean variety, goes well to me with a